In the quiet corners of every city, behind the polished glass of offices and the glowing blue light of screens, a silent war unfolds. It is not fought with weapons, but with perceptions. Not with soldiers, but with images. Every glance, every word, every hesitation becomes a calculation in the invisible chessboard of modern life. Niccolo Machiavelli, 5 centuries ago, wrote about princes and rulers. But what he really described was us. He taught that life rewards not the honest, but the aware. That survival depends less on purity and more on performance. To act as if is to become what the world believes you are. And in that illusion lies real control. Yet if Machiavelli were alive today, he would find the battlefield transformed. The modern man no longer fights to rule others, and he fights to keep himself together. To look powerful, confident, desirable, even when exhausted, insecure, or lost. And in this new empire of self-presentation enters the voice of Byung-Chul Han. Where Machiavelli mapped the logic of rulers, Han maps the psychology of burnout. One taught how to gain power, the other teaches how power now consumes us. Together they whisper a truth most refuse to hear. That modern freedom is often just a more elegant form of slavery, and the command to be yourself is merely another mask the system forces you to wear. So when we say act as if you are the best, we don't mean arrogance. We mean awareness. To act not from fear but from understanding. To see through the games of ego and illusion, and to use the mask without becoming it. Because power today is not about conquering kingdoms. It is about conquering perception. The way others see you, the way you see yourself, the way the world forces you to perform a role even when you crave silence. And so this video begins where both Machiavelli and Byung-Chul Han meet. At the fragile point between control and collapse, between the ruler and the ruled within your own mind. Part 1. The Art of Seeming, Machiavelli's Eternal Law. Machiavelli once wrote that a ruler must learn to be not good when necessary. It was not cynicism, it was survival. He understood that morality often bends to power, and that the appearance of virtue often matters more than virtue itself. In today's world, this lesson has evolved. We no longer wear crowns or command armies, but we still perform. Social media has become our royal court, filled with courtiers chasing validation. Every post, every smile, every story, another act in the theater of seeming. Machiavelli would not be surprised. He would tell you the world does not reward the invisible. You must make your presence felt, even if your confidence is manufactured. He would say, act as if you are the best and soon they will treat you as such. Because image precedes truth. Humans are wired to believe performance before sincerity. The man who hesitates loses command. The one who declares certainty gains it. This is not deception, it is the oldest strategy in history. To become powerful, you must first look powerful. But here lies the danger. When you live only through the mask, you forget the face beneath it. The longer you perform strength, the more fragile it secretly becomes. And this is where Byung-Chul Han enters to expose the sickness beneath confidence. Part 2. The burnout of the modern prince, Byung-Chul Han's warning. Byung-Chul Han observes that today's man is not oppressed by kings or masters, but by himself. He is his own tyrant, his own slave driver, his own perfectionist. He whispers to himself, you must do more. You must become more. You must never rest. Where Machiavelli's prince fought enemies outside his palace, Han's achievement subject fights invisible battles inside his own head. We no longer obey orders, we obey our ambition. We call it freedom, but it's just a more seductive kind of control. You wake up and check your phone, already comparing, already performing, already anxious to stay relevant. You scroll through lives that seem brighter, richer, more complete, and you tell yourself, I must act as if I am the best. But deep inside you feel the exhaustion of pretending. Han calls this the burnout society, a culture where power no longer oppresses, it seduces, where we willingly exploit ourselves in the name of success, where self-expression becomes self-exploitation, and authenticity becomes performance. Machiavelli would have admired our efficiency, but Han would have pitied our fatigue. Because to act as if you are the best is dangerous when you forget why you're acting. The performance becomes endless. The role becomes identity. And soon the prince becomes prisoner to his own reflection. Han says that the modern soul is not crushed by domination, but by excess positivity. We are told we can do anything. become anyone, achieve everything. And so we work ourselves into exhaustion, not because someone commands us to, but because we command ourselves. Power, once external, has migrated inward. We carry it like a glowing device in our pockets, always on, always judging, always demanding. We are both the ruler and the ruled, and this is where Machiavelli's cold wisdom meets Han's psychological insight. To act as if you are the best, yes, but do it with awareness. Know that the act is a tool, not a truth. Know that confidence is a mask, not a cage. And above all, remember that control without reflection becomes self-destruction. Part 3.
Power as performance, the stage you cannot leave.
Power has never been a thing you own. It is a thing you perform. Even the most powerful ruler depends on the gaze of others, on their fear, admiration, or belief. Machiavelli knew this well. He wrote that a prince must not truly be virtuous, but must appear virtuous. For men judge more by sight than by touch, and everyone can see, but few can understand. Now, centuries later, Byung-Chul Han looks at our glowing screens and sees the same theater. Only the stage has grown infinite. We perform for everyone, everywhere, all the time. We smile, post, edit, filter, and speak in algorithms of approval. The audience is invisible but omnipresent, and the applause comes as hearts, likes, and numbers that measure our worth. The modern self is not free. It is displayed. We no longer act to express. We act to be seen. We no longer strive for mastery. We strive for visibility. And visibility is the new currency of power. It buys influence, affection, validation. But its price is inner silence. The more you perform, the less you feel. The more you speak, the less you mean. Machiavelli would warn you. Never reveal your true weakness. Always control the image others see. Han would add, yes, but in hiding every weakness, you will lose the capacity to be real. And that is the paradox of our era. We have all become little princes in digital courts, constantly seeking eyes to affirm that we exist. To act as if you are the best has become the unspoken command of every social platform, every motivational slogan, every success story. But the question remains, what happens when the act never ends? When the performance becomes your life, and you forget the person behind the mask? Machiavelli taught us how to win the world. Han reminds us not to lose our soul in the process. Part 4. The mirror of self-optimization. When you become your own enemy. Han calls today's age the age of transparency. Everything must be visible, measurable, optimized, improved. Even the soul has been turned into a project. We track our sleep, our calories, our productivity, our happiness, as if perfection were a number we could finally reach. But what Machiavelli once saw in rulers, that constant anxiety to maintain control, Han now sees in everyone. Each of us has become our own ruler, governing, evaluating, punishing, and rewarding ourselves. In an endless cycle of self-surveillance, the modern man no longer needs a master. He has internalized one. He is both the prison guard and the prisoner, the emperor and the subject, the hunter and the hunted within his own mind. And this internal monarchy is exhausting. We tell ourselves we are free. Yet every day we compete with a version of ourselves that never truly exists, the perfect, flawless, productive self that we display to others. We wear the armor of confidence while bleeding underneath. Machiavelli said, "It is better to be feared than loved." But today the fear is inward. We fear not living up to our own image. We fear losing relevance, momentum, or validation, and that fear drives us into a quiet panic, a soft, invisible tyranny called self-improvement. Han argues that the modern subject is not exploited by others. He exploits himself voluntarily. He pushes, disciplines, motivates, and tortures himself, all in the name of progress. And so, the pursuit of freedom turns into fatigue. The pursuit of excellence becomes an endless mirror, reflecting back only insufficiency. To act as if you are the best must not mean to destroy yourself for perfection. It must mean to embody your worth, not to prove it. To know the act is not a lie but a lens, a way to navigate a world that rewards appearance, without letting appearance devour your truth. Machiavelli gives you the armor. Han warns you not to forget the heartbeat underneath it. Part 5. The psychology of control. Why power needs stillness. Power to Machiavelli was a living organism, a thing that must be fed, maintained, and constantly observed. He taught that to lose vigilance is to invite ruin. The ruler must stay awake, aware, always ready to shift and adapt. But in our time, that vigilance has become obsession. We are always watching not others but ourselves. We are caught in what Han calls the neural storm of attention. Constantly alert, never at rest. Every silence feels like a threat. Every pause feels like a failure. We mistake movement for meaning and busyness for importance. We live under the tyranny of doing, forgetting that real power often hides in not doing. Han writes that modern man has lost the ability to dwell in stillness. We cannot wait. We cannot detach. Our minds are constantly reloading, refreshing, reacting. And yet what is a king who cannot sit still upon his throne? What is a mind that cannot rest within itself? Machiavelli would call this the fatal weakness of our age, a loss of strategy. For without the power to withdraw, one cannot truly rule. The overexposed self is defenseless. The constantly active self is predictable. To act as if you are the best does not mean to chase endlessly. It means to command presence, to move with purpose, to speak with weight, to hold silence as power, to know when to step back, when to let the world come to you. Han says that the burnout of our century is not from oppression, but from overexposure. We shine too brightly for too long, until even our brilliance blinds us. True power, then, is not constant motion, but the mastery of rhythm, knowing when to act and when to retreat, knowing that control is not loud, it is subtle. It is the calm that others mistake for confidence, the stillness that others read as strength. The man who can rest in silence commands more power than the one who shouts his greatness. Because silence cannot be questioned, and peace cannot be manipulated. Machiavelli taught how to survive the world of appearances. Han teaches how to survive the world of ourselves. Together they remind us, act as if you are the best, but never forget that the act must rest upon understanding. Without inner stillness, the crown becomes too heavy to wear. Part 6. The loneliness of the crown. The cost of appearing powerful. There is a strange kind of loneliness that follows those who rise. It is not the absence of people, but the absence of truth. When you act as if you are the best, when your presence demands attention, you attract both admiration and distance. People no longer speak to you, they speak to your image. Machiavelli warned the prince of this centuries ago. Those who flatter you will surround you, but few will dare to tell you the truth. He understood that power isolates, that to be at the top is to live behind layers of illusion. And Byung-Chul Han, watching our modern world, sees that everyone now carries this same burden. Not the crown of gold, but the crown of performance. We are all trapped in self-curated worlds, each of us wearing masks so convincing that even we believe them. We share our victories, never our defeats. We display our happiness, never our confusion. We appear confident even when trembling inside. In doing so, we become like the prince surrounded by courtiers, alone in the midst of applause. Han calls this the hell of the same. A world where every face smiles, every voice claims success. Every life pretends to be perfect, and yet behind it all is quiet despair. To act as if you are the best must not become another prison. Because if you cannot remove the mask, you no longer own your performance, it owns you. Power that cannot be set down becomes a burden, and the crown becomes a cage. Machiavelli would tell you that power must be maintained through fear and respect. Han would whisper that real power is maintained through authentic distance, the ability to withdraw, to protect one's inner world from the constant exposure. You do not need to be visible to be powerful. You do not need to shout to be heard. Real strength does not seek the crowd. It endures without it. It is the stillness in a world that cannot stop moving. It is the person who does not beg to be seen, because they already see themselves, and perhaps that is the greatest test of all. To walk through the theater of appearances, to play your part with grace, but never forget that behind the performance, you remain the director. Part 7. The Inner Throne, where power becomes freedom. What is power truly? Not dominance, not control, not the number of followers, nor the ability to bend others to your will. Power in its purest form is clarity, the clear knowing of who you are, and the refusal to let anyone rewrite that truth. Machiavelli's prince sought to control the outside world. He maneuvered through politics, deceit, and strategy. But Byung-Chul Han asks a deeper question. What if the new battlefield is inside? What if power today is not the ability to conquer others, but to conquer your own reaction to them? To not crumble under judgment, to not rush for validation, to not need applause to feel alive. That is the modern form of sovereignty. Han calls it the art of dwelling. To dwell in your being, to sit on your own throne without needing to perform for anyone. In a world addicted to noise, silence becomes rebellion. In a society obsessed with visibility, invisibility becomes power. And so, to act as if you are the best takes on a higher meaning. It is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is walking through the chaos of modern life with the calm of someone who knows his value is not negotiable. Machiavelli gives you the posture, the readiness to act, to adapt, to rule your fate. Han gives you the awareness, the wisdom to rest, to breathe, to not lose your inner kingdom. When these two merge, you become something rare. A person who can move through the world strategically, but not lose his humanity. A person who can wear the mask when needed, but knows when to take it off. A person who acts with confidence, but no longer needs the world to confirm it. That is the highest form of power, when you no longer chase it, when you carry it quietly, as an aura that requires no defense, when your stillness intimidates more than your noise. That is the throne within, and no one can dethrone you from it. Ending. The mirror and the crown. At the end of all strategies, after all the victories and masks and performances, there comes a quiet question. Who am I when no one is watching? That question haunted the rulers Machiavelli advised. It now haunts the citizens Han describes. We have become so good at appearing powerful that we have forgotten how to simply be. But maybe the answer is not to abandon the act, but to perform it consciously. To act knowing it is an act, to play the role of the best, not to deceive the world, but to awaken the version of yourself that already exists beneath fear. When Machiavelli says, act as if you are the best, he gives you the sword. When Han says, do not lose yourself to performance, he gives you the shield. Together they remind you that greatness is not a costume. It is a discipline. It is the calm mastery of your own perception. It is the refusal to be small in a world that profits from your doubt. So act, yes. Act with certainty. Act with power. But do it with awareness. Know that you are both the actor and the author. Know that the world will mirror what you project, and that your performance can shape your destiny. Be bold but not blind. Be visible but not hollow. Be confident but not consumed. And when the day ends, when the lights fade and the crowd disappears, stand before the mirror and remind yourself, I am not what they see. I am what I choose to become. That is Machiavelli's power. That is Byung-Chul Han's awareness. That is your throne within. And no one, no mask, no doubt, no system, can take it away from you.